سلام جنہیں شرم کھائے جاتی ہے، کھلے سروں پر اسیری کی پاپ آتی ہے، سلام ان پر جو زحمت کے کاسل ہے، مصیبتوں میں امامت کی پہلی منزل ہے، سلام بھیجتے ہیں اپنی شاہزادی پر، جن کو سونپ گئے مرتے وقت گھر سرور، مسافرت نے جسے بے بسی دکھلائی، نثار کر دیے بچے نہ بچ سکا بھائی، اسیر ہو کے جنہیں شامیوں کے مرغے میں حسینیت ہے ٹھکانہ علی کے لہجے میں، سکینہ بی بی تمہارے غلام حاضر ہے، مجھے جو پیاس ہو عاشقوں کے جام حاضر ہے، یہ سن یہ حاشیے صدمے نئے نئے بی کہاں پہ بیٹھی ہو خیمے تو جل گئے بی پہاڑ بڑی دیر ہے سویرے میں، کہاں ہو شام غریبا کے بخ اندھیروں میں، زمین گرد یتیمی کی سختیاں بھی وہ سینہ جس پہ کے سوتی تھی اب کہاں بھی جناب مادرے شیر کو بھی سب کا سلام، عجیب قریب وقت ہے، کیا دے تسلیوں کا پیام، تو ابھی کلیج میں ایک آگ سی لگی ہوگی، ابھی تو گود کی گرمی نہ کم ہوئی ہوگی، نئی اندھیرے میں کچھ سوچتا کہاں ڈھونڈے، تمہارا چاند کہاں چھپ گیا کہاں ڈھونڈے، نہ اس طرح کوئی کھیتی ہری بھری اجڑی، تمہاری ماں بھی اجڑی ہے، گود بھی اجڑی، نئی لائنوں میں انسان کوئی خدا حافظ، درند اور یہ دیوار سی خدا حافظ، سلام محسن اسلام خاصتاً لاشو، سلام تم پر شہیدوں کے بے کفن لاشو، بچے تو اگلے برس ہم ہیں یہ اور پھر ہم ہے، جو چل بسے تو یہ اپنا سلام آخر ہے،
ابرو کمال کی آمد ہے، اصغر بے زبان کی آمد ہے، بھوکے کی نادوا کی آمد ہے، پیاسے کی نیم جان کی آمد ہے، پیاسے کی نیم جان کی آمد، یہی خیمے میں شور ہوتا ہے، وعدہ ان کا بھی پورا ہوتا ہے، وعدہ ان کا بھی پورا ہوتا، پیاس دیا ہے یہ عالم، غش پہ غش آتے ہیں انہیں پیغام ملتے ہیں ہاتھ پاؤں بھی کب سینے میں اب نہیں سماتا، سینے میں اب نہیں سماتا، غم سے ماتم زدوں کو سکتا ہے ننھا سید بڑا سسکتا، ننھا سید بڑا سسکتا، سینہ گرمی کے مار جلتا ہے ننھا سا دل بڑا اچھلتا ہے، کم بدم رنگ کو بدلتا ہے بس نہیں کچھ کسی کا چلتا، بس نہیں کچھ کسی کا چلتا، نام پانی کا سب جو لیتے ہیں منہ کو گھبرا کے کھول دیتے، منہ کو گھبرا کے کھول دیتے، رو کے کہتی ہے بانوئے دلگیر میں کدھر جاؤں کیا کروں تدبیر، آئے بچے میری تیری تقدیر، نہ تو پانی ملا تجھے ناشک، نہ تو پانی ملا تجھے حال جب دیکھتی ہے یہ زینب کہتی ہے یا علی مدد، کہتی ہے یا علی مدد، تو کے کہنے لگے امام غیور غافل ہو کچھ نہیں ہے تم کو شعور، تم سمجھنا نہیں خدا کو میرے بچے کا کوئی نہیں ہے قصور، میرے بچے کا کوئی نہیں ہے، بے گناہ کی نہ جان لو یارو میرے کہنے کو مان لو یا میرے کہنے کو مان لو، ظالم و واسطہ پیمبر کا دم نکلتا ہے میرے دل بھر کا، کرو حلق میرے اصغر کا جام دوں گا میں تم کو کوثر، جام دوں گا میں تم کو کوثر، اور ملا بولا آب ملتا ہے ٹھہرو ٹھہرو جواب آب ملتا، ٹھہرو ٹھہرو جواب کہہ کے یہ روئے سرور زیجا لیے ہاتھوں پہ اپنا ہجرت ماں کہا پہنا ابا میں خاطر اور کہا لا الہ الا اور کہا لا الہ لے کے پیاسے کو اشک بار چلے پشت خم کر کے بے قرار بولے کرتا ہے کیا غضب ظالم مارتا کیوں ہے بے سبب ظالم، پانی مانگیں گے ہم نہ اب ظالم، سنتا تھا شیخ کہنا قبضہ، سنتا تھا شیخ کہنا قبضہ، تیر رو کمان کو مارا 6 महीने की जान को मारा
محمد وآل محمد.
شام میں جب بے بسوں کی شام ہوئی گیا رے شام میں جب بے کسوں کی شام ہوئی رات پیٹنے رونے میں بس تمام ہوئی اونٹوں پر خلق خدا تمام ہوئی واہ یزید برآمد یہ دھوم دھام ہوئی فلک ستائی ہوئی غم کی مبتلا زینب فلک ستائی ہوئی غم کی مبتلا زینب چلی یزید کی محفل میں بیردا زینب دیار شام میں علی کی بیٹیاں زندان میں جب اسیر ہوئی علی کی بیٹیاں زندان میں جب اسیر ہوئی امام زادیاں حاکم کی دستگیر ہوئی مصیبت حرم شاہ پر کثیر ہوئی اور غم حسین میں شہزادیاں پیر ہوئی کئی دنوں سے میسر نابودانا تھا کئی دنوں سے میسر نابودانا تھا اندھیری رات تھی ٹوٹا سا قید خانہ تھا علی کی بیٹیاں زندان میں جب اسیر ہوئی درود
محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. بانو کہا کرے اپنے لال کو بانو کا تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو جنگل میں مار ڈالا ہے لہرا کیا کو بانو کہاں تلاش شبیر میرے پاس ہے صدقے کو بس یہی شبیر میرے پاس ہے صدقے کو بس یہی سے لا کے دے دیا مانو نے لال کو سے لا کے دے دیا مانو نے لال کو بانو کہاں تلاش زینب کے ساتھ روتی ہے سب مل کے بیویاں زینب کے ساتھ روتی ہے سب مل کے بیویاں جب دیکھتی تھی روز وہ وقت زوال کو بانو کہاں تلاش شبیر دل کو تھام کے غش کھا کے گر پڑے شبیر دل کو تھام کے غش کھا کے گر پڑے دیکھا جو خون میں غرق نبی کے جمال کو دیکھا جو خون میں غرق نبی کے جمال کو بانو کہاں تلاش شبیر لا رہے میدان سے دیکھیے شبیر لا رہے میدان سے دیکھیے اپنے ضعیف کندھوں پر 18 سال کو بانو کہاں تلاش بازار شام میں وہ اسیروں کا قافلہ بازار شام میں وہ اسیروں عابد نہ بھول پائے کبھی اس خیال کو مانو کہاں تلاش ایسا ظلم و جور کسی پر ہوا نہیں ایسا ظلم و جور پر ہوا نہیں برباد جس طرح کیا زہرا کیا کو برباد جس طرح کیا زہرا کیا کو بانو کہاں تلاش لیلا رہی بات کر بنا لیلا رہی بات کر بنا یا رب جدا نہ کرنا کسی ماں سے حال کو یا رب جدا نہ کرنا کسی ماں سے حال کو مانو کہاں تلاش شبیر اپنے روزے پر بلوائیں گے شبیر اپنے روزے پر بلوائیں گے توقیر تو نے کلدا دل سے ملال کو بانو کا تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو مانو کہاں تلاش
محمد وآل محمد صلوات آصغر بن تیرے میں چین کہاں سے پاؤں آصغر بن تیرے میں چین کہاں سے پاؤں آ لوٹ کے آ جا لال میرے آ لوٹ کے آ جا لال میرے جی بھر کے ناز اٹھاؤں آصغر بن تیرے میں چین کہاں سے پاؤں آصغر بن تیرے میں چین کہاں سے پاؤں تیری وہ معصوم ادائیں تیری یاد دلاتی ہے تیرے پیار کی وہ سب باتیں مجھ کو خون رلاتی ہے، میں تیری جدائی میں بیٹا، میں تیری جدائی میں بیٹا، رو رو کے مر نہ جاؤں، آصغر بن تیرے میں چین کہاں سے پاؤں، میری آنکھ کا تارا ہے تو مجھ کو جان سے پیارا ہے، ماں دکھیاری کے جینے کا تو ہی لال سہارا ہے، تجھے چھوڑ کے تنہا مقتل میں، تجھے چھوڑ کے تنہا مقتل میں کیسے شام کو جاؤں، آصغر بن تیرے میں چین کہاں سے پاؤں، آصغر بن تیرے میں چین کہاں سے پاؤں، آ لوٹ کے آ جا لال میرے، آ لوٹ کے آ جا لال میرے، جی بھر کے ناز اٹھا، آصغر بن تیرے میں چین کہاں سے پاؤں، محمد وال محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔
میں منتظم کلام مولانا یہ رضوی صاحب سے لے کے وزیر پر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔ بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، الحمد للہ رب العالمین والصلاة والسلام علی اشرف الانبیاء والمرسلین سیدنا و مولانا ابی القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من يومنا إلى يوم الدين، أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الحكيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم أحد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين أن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد ضل منكم جبلا كثيرا فلم تكونوا تعقلون. صلوات. We discussed these ayats over the last few days just to remind us the translation of it, and then inshallah today I hope to conclude with the whole last few sections of this ayat, these ayats. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alam ahdi ilaykum ya bani Adam. Did I not make an agreement with you, O children of Adam, Allah ta'budu shaitan, that you will not worship the shaitan? Innahu lakum aduwwun mubin, he is an open enemy of yours. Worship me, but that is the straight path. And certainly he led astray numerous people from amongst you. What? Could you not then understand? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this few ayats has been making clear to us that look, I've made an agreement with you. You have to keep to that. We discussed that throughout the conversations that we've had. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid so many responsibilities on our shoulders, and likewise He has returned those responsibilities by fulfilling His promises. For what He would do, He would give us life, He would give us sustenance, He will give us health, He will give us wealth. These are God's promises. In reverse, He says, don't worship the shaitan. In other words, don't treat the shaitan as the person, as the entity, as the thing to which you have to take authority from. Then He says, look, don't take the shaitan. Follow my path. This is the Sirat al-Mustaqim. And if you don't follow the Sirat al-Mustaqim, have you not seen the last part of the ayah says, have you not seen that God, shaitan has misled so many people, so many generations and generations of people? Even in our own communities, we see this, how some people are in our community become the clients of the shaitan against our own principles, against our own values. And thereupon they become the center pin or pivotal people in our community, guiding our communities from to the shaitan. But I said, then we discussed this throughout this conversation, that the Kufis, because they did not uphold the agreement that they had made with God, in other words, that natural agreement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created with all of us, the Kufis abstained from that agreement. And I said there are three reasons we've already discussed, and yesterday I started the fourth reason. The three reasons was that they neglected the Quran. The second thing, that they chased after the dunya. The third thing was that they had planned to, so what? The third thing, that they ignored the whole responsibilities of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. And the fourth thing, which I started our conversation on, was this thing that they had abstained from recognizing the Imam of their time. In other words, the role of the Imamah, the role of the leadership. And we said yesterday, discussed it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that you have to do itaat to Allah, the Rasul, and the Ulil Amr. Then we talked about the fact that Muhammad is Ulil Amr. We said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings in the Rasul, and then through him, the Ulil Amr, the Imam Masumin. Now, what is important to understand is that once we talk about the Imams, there's a lovely saying from the Holy Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, Ali ma haq, haq ma Ali. And this is a very important thing, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His whole principles are based on justice. His whole principles are based on truth. And that main supporter of truth, the Holy Prophet identifies as Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. And we can salawat. There's a lovely saying from our first Imam. He says, in Deen Allah, la ya'rifu bil-rijal. The religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not recognized by people. What is it recognized? Bal bi'ayati al-haq. But rather it is recognized by the signs of truth. And then he says, our Imam, he said, fa'arif al-haq. So recognize haq. So then you will recognize the ahl. Now this is a very important hadith of the Imam. You don't have to run wild in trying to see what is the truth. Truth is already entrusted in you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Shams said, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ in Surah 18. Then he says in Surah Shams, he says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ. Then he says, فَأَعْرَفْنَا. He says, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made you recognize the truth, the taqwa and the piety, and that also of gumrahi, in other words, losing track of what is in your, what's the responsibility for you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already installed as a default position in us to recognize good and bad. Is when we go out into the society and we get infested by the evils of the society, that we start going astray. That's why this hadith from the Imam says that if you want to remain on following the right people, then don't just look at what people are saying. First, try to recognize what truth is, what haqq is. Once you recognize what haqq is, then automatically people will fall in their slots. But we don't, we sometimes just listen to people, hear a few things here, a few things there, and start thinking, well, this is true, this is falsehood, and so on. We lose out. And that's why it's important to know that when somebody is telling the truth, how that truth is nurtured. I want to bring something to your attention. I don't know whether some of you have ever heard this, but hopefully you can hear it on the speakers as well. I want to bring this clip which was brought to my attention by a person called Mr. Pompey. Everybody knows who Mr. Pompey was? Pompey was the Secretary of State for America under the authority of Donald Trump. Okay, Donald Trump. This is what Pompey says. I hope you can hear it. So it's the Lord. Get another salawat. Once that opens, I'll continue the conversation a little bit. The important thing is that when you're looking for help, it's the right people that you have to use. Right, listen.
You steal and tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, steal, stole. It's like we had entire training courses.
Did you get that? Did you hear that? Mr. Pompey is saying that we were taught when we were cadets that we should not lie, cheat, or steal. Then he laughs. He said, but in fact, we had a whole course on how to cheat, lie, and steal. And these people are clapping. They're clapping and they're laughing all over it. And then he says, at the end, he says, this reminds me of the glory of the American experiment. This is the truth, that these are the liars. We have the responsibility to understand where the truth is coming from and where a lie is coming from. But because we don't see the people up, we label the haq people as liars, and those who are liars are the people of haq. Salawat. So we have to have a responsibility to find, and this is where the Kufis suffered. They did not identify with the right Imam of the time. They made Ubaidullah their Imam. They did not recognize Hazrat Muslim as the leader or the representative of the Imam of that time. And that's why today I want to discuss the whole meaning of what imamate is. Not the imamate of Pompey who confesses that we were taught how to lie. We who are followers of the Ahl al-Bayt, we are taught how to say the truth. We're not taught how to lie. But it seems like the international leadership has the courtesy of lying and then still say it's telling the truth. And this is where it's so important that our children, our generations, next generations understand that recognizing the truth is important, not be bewildered by what is happening. That is why it is so important to be able to read what is between the lines which is being thrown at us. And we understand what's happening. That's why in Surah Isra, which is Bani Israel, number 17, and this is very easy to remember this ayat, is number 17 and 71. 71 being a reflection of 17. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Yawma nadu kulla unasim bi imamihim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, remember that day when every single person will be called up with his imam or her imam. We, as the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, we think this ayat is particularly talking about our Imam Asumi. There's a lovely book which Imam Khamenei has written, which is called The 250-Year Man, in which he looks, in Sade Durista Penjastali, he looks at the imamate and he says, this is a human being of 250 years, that at every time our imam looked at the time and gave the instructions of how the mu'mineen of that time should operate. In others, immediately our imams, yes, they were all under one principle of imamate. But every time, the first imam operated under the authority of a governmental authority. The second imam operated as a person under the but your mayor's authority, but as far as he was Imam Hussein operated as the Shaheed, and so on, all the Imams operated within their own perspective and guided the community according to the perspective that they were at that time that they were Imams. So we think that this ayah, which says Nadu kullahu nasib imami, that it is talking about our 12 Imams. But in fact, when you look at the commentary of this ayah, the ayah is saying, remember, every single person will be called up with his Imam. In other words, if anybody selected Karl Marx as their leader, on the day of judgment, they will be brought up saying, Karl Marx was your Imam, explain yourself. If you selected Boris Johnson as your Imam, you will be called up with Boris Johnson and say, you selected him as your Imam, explain yourself. So this ayat is opening a very important chapter in understanding. We don't go deep into the Quranic understanding to see where we're being led. This ayat has a deep explanation. But then you might say, well, this word Imam, where does, is it not specifically for our 12 Imams? Well, let me give you first a couple of examples and then we'll move forward. The person who leads the Salat, we call him Imam Jama'at. He's an Imam. He's not a Masum. He's meant to be Adil, but he's not a Masum, so he's called an Imam. In Arabic, that little bit of stone which levels of the wall, which you put onto a string, that's called an Imam. That's not a Masum. It's a stone. It's dead. It's an entity that has no life, but that's called an Imam. So we've got to understand the word Imam has several meanings. Allama Hindi says in his one of his books, he says there's a concept of Imamat which is Imam Khas and Imam Am. Imam Khas is specifically for the 12 Imams. Imam Khas is specifically for the 12 Imams. Imam Am is for anything which can be defined as leadership. Anything that can be defined, entrusted with leading something, whether it's leading a straight walk, leading a salat at prayers, anything which is defined within the leadership role has that Imam Am. What is important to understand is that when we look at the word Imam, we have to look at Imam within two perspectives, as I said. One perspective is the Imam Khas. That's why our 8th Imam, Imam Riza alayhi salam, defines Imamat. He defines Imamat as a ruling system for the Muslims. He doesn't call Imamat the leadership of the 12 Imams. He calls it the ruling system for the Muslimin. And within that, we have a huge, as I said to you yesterday, as Shia believers awaiting our 12th Imam, we are in a religious Muslim system that we have to understand. Not just look at it and say, Imam is Zaman ki intizam, and we're just waiting for the 12th Imam. Now that wait has a system. That waiting is a system. How is that system developed? This is what I want to, inshallah, in the next few minutes that I've got, conclude our discussions to let you know, or let you at least bring in your mind an understanding of what the Kufis did, which led down the Imam of their time. We said Imamat, our Imam said Imamat is a system for the Muslim Ummah. Quran talks about Imams in two ways. There are two ayats in the Quran which define Imam. First ayat of the Quran is the Surah Qasas, which is the 28th Surah of the Quran, ayat number 41. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَعَلْنَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً, that we have made them Imams. Now this is important. Look at the translation as the Quranic Arabic says it. And then I'll bring you this next ayat. This ayat says, وَجَعَلْنَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً, we have made them Imams. They're not the 12 Imams. Remember what I'm saying, because this ayat explains to us that the Quran itself identifies Imamat in different manners. It says, وَجَعَلْنَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ, that we have created Imams who invite you to the fire. Hang on, but my Imam doesn't invite me to the fire. So what's the Quran saying that it has created Imams who will invite you to the fire? And not only does the Quran say they invite you to the fire, then they say, وَيَوْمُ الْقِيَامَةِ لَا يُنْصَرُونَ, and on the day of judgment, they will not have any helpers for themselves. Hang on, my Imam is going to be the helper for me. How can anyone who will not have a helper for himself? So the Quran is making a very important statement that don't get confused in the meaning of Imamat. Remember, Imamat is Imam Am and Imam Khas. This definition of Imamat is quite clear, that on the day of judgment, there will be people who had led people towards the fire because they were leaders of those communities. They led them towards the fire, and on the day of judgment, Allah will recognize them as leaders of that ummah, but they will be taken to the fire because of the fact that they invited people to the fire. So this is very important to understand, brothers and sisters, that we have a meaning in the Quran which is not necessarily that meaning which we have adopted, unless we read the Quran a little bit carefully. Yes, our imams are the imams who will lead us, but they're not the imams who will lead us to the fire. Why? Because the next ayah that I will explain to you will tell you what is that imam that our imam relates to. Our imam relates to the Surah Anbiya, which is the 21st surah of the Quran, ayat number 73. In which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the same first ayat, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً, that we have made them imams. Then what does it say? He says, يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا, we have made them imams, that they will guide you according to our instructions. So you can see the difference between the two imams. One imam is that he will guide people towards the fire. The second imam is he will guide you according to our instructions. In other words, instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we can see now that in our lives we should understand what imam is. Not just look at imam as, I remember one day when right at the beginning of the Islam, when we used to say Imam Khomeini. There used to be a gentleman who used to sit in the crowd, he used to say, Lanat, Lanat. He didn't even understand the meaning of imam there. Imam Khomeini is not a 13th imam. Imam Khomeini is the leadership of the Muslim Ummah at that time. And he used to say, upload the 13th Imam Bana. You're creating a 13th Imam here. There is no meaning of a 13th Imam. The meaning of Imam Khomeini is to guide, to define that instructive individual who is basing his instructions on you according to Allah's commands. A lot of enemies of Islam say that Wilayat al-Faqih is a dictatorship. Wilayat al-Faqih is a dictatorship. Imam Khomeini answered to this. He said, Wilayat al-Faqih and dictatorship are two separate things altogether. A dictatorship is a authority. A dictatorship is a authority based on the commands of the dictator. But the Wilayat al-Faqih is the authority which is based on the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the difference between the two. Wilayat al-Faqih is not a dictatorship. Wilayat al-Faqih is the instruction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. Salawat. Then the ayat says in Surah Anbiya, it says, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَأْمُرُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا. Then he said, what are these imams who guide you according to Amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ فِعْلُ الْخَيْرَاتِ, that we inspire on them good actions. We inspire on them good actions. وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ, that they establish salat. وَأَتُوا zakat, they give zakat. وَقَالُوا لَنَا عَابِدِينَ, and they will be our bandeh, they will be our servants. So this is an interesting, important factor to understand, that when we're talking about imams, we're talking about that system that we have. Imam Riza al-Islam said that Imamat Salawat. Imamat is the system of the Muslim Ummah. The Quran is defining that system of the Muslim Ummah. That if there's an Imam, he will be an individual who will guide you on Allah's commands. He will be inspired to do good. He will establish salat, and he will give zakat, and he will be identified as one of our servants. Imam Khomeini says in one of his speeches, he says, to establish Islamic government is more important than establishing salat. You may think, what? This is kufr. Surely this is kufr. You're saying that establishing Islamic government is more important than establishing salat? What do you mean? Salat is Allah's command. The government is Dunya's command. Imam Khomeini says, no. A person who establishes Islamic government will only establish Islamic government if he's a person who prays. Otherwise, there's no reason for him to establish Islamic government if he doesn't pray. He can establish any government. But he establishes Islamic government because he recites salat, that once he established Islamic government, the salat also becomes so active in the society. Not like where we can have big centers in our communities. But if we establish Islamic rules in those communities, we will be obstructed. So we have to understand that when the Islamic rule is being defined by our Imam, he's making it clear to us that imamat is reality, is the religious system. Now, what is important to understand, because time is really dragging me on, if we realize that جَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَأْمُرُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا, that we have created imams who will instruct you according to our commands, what happens when our 12th goes into hiding? Because we're followers of the 12th, after all. Do we say that I will follow my 12th imam? How do I follow my 12th imam? If I've got problems, who do I address my issues to? How do I get my problems resolved? This is what the Kufis could not understand. That when Hazrat Muslim went there, Hazrat Muslim was going to be that tool by which they could resolve their problems. But they abandoned him because they said, no, if we want, we'll wait for our Imam of our time. No, the Imam was not coming. He had sent his representative to see to your affairs, but you abandoned him. This is the thing which I'm talking about as a system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us. Now, our 11th Imam, he makes a very important statement. Because you see, what we have to understand is in the absence of the 12th Imam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not abandoned us Shias particularly to the whims of our own requirements. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made sure that whoever you take as leaders for yourself, these are people who will guide you according to Allah's command. In our present day life, the system which we have as Shias is the system of the fuqaha. In the absence of the 12th Imam, we're placing the needs of our community until the 12th Imam appears. In other words, our scholars of our time, the scholars who spent 60 years, 70 years of their lives in the Hawza Ilmiya of Qom or Najaf and guide us, learn about the ahadith of the Imam Masumi and teach us and interpret to us what is the commands that Allah is expecting of us. Our 11th Imam tells us what we have to do with regards to the fuqaha. He says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْفُقَهَا. As for those who are our jurisprudents, prudential people, in other words, those who are our jurists. فَأَمَّا مَنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْفُقَهَا. Thus, the ones out of the jurists, what does he say? That these jurists should have the following attributes. صَائِنًا لِنَفْسِهِ, one who protects his soul. حَافِظًا لِدِينِهِ, that he is the savior of his religion. مُخَالِفًا عَلَى هَوَاهِ, that he oppresses his pleasures. مُطِيعًا لِأَمْرِ مَوْلَهِ, that he is an obedient servant of his authority. Then what does the 11th Imam says? That once you find the faqih who fulfills these roles, these identities, these attributes, then he says, فَلِلْ أَوَامِ, then it is the responsibility on the ordinary people. وَلِلْأَوَامِ أَيْ يُقَلِّدُوهُ, it is compulsory on the ordinary people to do his taqleed. We come up with these things. What is this taqleed? Taqleed kya cheez hai? Where have these Maulanas brought this out of the blue? No, our 11th Imam is saying that when you have the right type of faqih in your system, then it is wajib on you to do taqleed of him. Not just leave him on the side and say, I'll just pick somebody who's just sitting on the mimbar saying whatever hairy things he wants to say from the mimbar. No, the Imam, 11th Imam is saying that as far as the faqih is concerned in your system, if he fulfills these attributes, that he's a protector of your religion. Our 8th Imam said that the Imam is one who is the protector of the Muslim Ummah system. Our 11th Imam is saying that he who is a faqih, who is a protector of the system, then it is wajib on you to do his taqleed. You can't just sit on the side and say, I'll do taqleed of I'm doing taqleed of the 12th Imam. And then we have some people who say, I'm doing taqleed of Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. What is all this? You know, there's a group in Pakistan, they don't go into masjid to pray. Why? They say because Mawla's head was cut on the sajda or in the masjid. So we don't pray. What is all this thing which is pumped into our community? Because we're not following the ulama who guide us on the right path. Not just, we follow people on airy-fairy rules and regulations. But we don't follow people on what is the religious responsibility that our fiqh tells us. And that's what happened to the people of Kufa, that they abandoned the representative of the Imam of the time. We have been abandoning the representatives of our Imam of our time when we abandon the meaning of taqleed, when we abandon the meaning of following. And people say, okay, what is this taqleed? Following. I don't want to, I'm not blind on things. Brothers and sisters, taqleed is a natural activity. Even a bird does taqleed of its mother when it's being fed. when Hewanat do taqleed of their others when they need to do something. We as human beings, as Maulana has been saying for the last few days, we are the most intellectual entity, the most clever thing in the creation of Allah. And we don't know that we should be doing taqleed when we don't know something. It is an important factor. And that's why every single bit of our life is nurtured on the meaning of following somebody. And if we don't do that, then we've lost the whole formula. We've lost the whole principle by why we are sitting here. Because we're sitting here because we want to follow something which will lead us to the 12th Imam. And the system which our 8th Imam has said, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's meaning of Imam is the system of the Muslim Ummah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. You know, if you look at the history of our 11th Imam, our 11th Imam taught us the meaning of taqleed. Because our 11th Imam was imprisoned. All his life he was imprisoned. But he taught people that in the absence of the Imam of our time, how are we meant to get the rules and regulations? And his wazara, his representatives. And that's what happened with the 12th Imam when he went to Khaybar, that he left behind his representatives. So we were meant to understand the meaning of taqleed. We're meant to understand the meaning of following a representative of the Imam of our time. And that is what's so important, that we do not abandon this important concept of the Shia belief. For that is the belief, that is the system which will bring us to the 12th Imam. And that's why when we look at a dua, which our Hazrat Ibrahim recites in Surah An'am, which is the 6th surah of the Quran, ayat number 162, he says, قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين. He says, my salat, surely my salat, my sacrifices, my life and my death are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do we create that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is to make sure that we connect with the 12th Imam of our time. How do we connect with the 12th Imam of our time? That we understand the system that the 11th Imam has identified for us in the absence of his son. That is why the whole 10 days of conversation that I've been trying to create around this ayat is to make sure that we have an agreement with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we will make sure that we do not abandon the 12th Imam of his representation. And the only time we will make sure that we do not abandon the 12th Imam, as I said, in the manner that the Sufis abandoned Imam Hussain, is to make sure that we endorse for ourselves, we accommodate for ourselves, we recognize the system that our 11th Imam has entrusted in us in the absence of his son. So this message of mine, ultimately, was to try and make sure that we understand that if we are to survive waiting for our 12, then we have to make sure that we listen to the Maraji of our time, who guide us how to remain on the path to the 12th. And if we abandon our Maraji of our time, if we abandon the Majid Taqleed of our time, then we've abandoned the whole system that the 8th Imam is talking about. That system which is the system of the Muslim Ummah. That system which provides that connection. That's why even now, because I've gone a few minutes over, I do apologize. But even now, this whole issue of what's happening in Afghanistan, even the Taliban of Afghanistan have had the responsibility to see how an Islamic Shia system operates when they look at the system in the Islamic Republic of Iran. They have no choice. If they want to make their system reliable, they will have to follow what has been given. And that's why you have Maulanas like Maulana Nusrat Abbas, who's been talking about it in Pakistan, that this present Taliban look relatively different from the previous Taliban. But still, we have to be cautious, nevertheless. Yet still, they have recognized that if a 12th Imam system is being run under the authority of the Islamic Republic of Iran, then they have to find a way to make sure that their system is also somehow attached, can be attached to it. So that's why, brothers and sisters, let's remember that the whole meaning of taqleed is not something, as I said, airy out of the blue. It is our system, endorse it, recognize it, and apply it. It is because of this, it is because of the fact that this system was ignored by those in Kufa, that these whole events of Karbala which happened. And it was since we are today commemorating a very important shahadat of the children. I've been trying to bring the shahadat of children to others because the aim is to also connect with the younger generation in our conversation. As Imam Hussein's caravan was leaving Medina, sister Fatima Suhra was holding her baby brother in her arms. The baby was not going to anybody, not even to his own mother. Umar Bab says, Ali Akbar, Ali Azhar, come to me. And he would not leave his sister's arms in Medina until Imam Hussein came. Umar Bab says, I don't know what my husband Hussein said to my baby, but immediately when the Imam said something to the ears of my baby, he came out of his sister's arms as if with a smile on his face saying, I'm coming with you, Baba. It's said that on the day of Ashura, we're on the night of it. Tonight, everybody is going to be waiting, awake all night, hopefully, inshallah, the night when the families, the relatives of Imams are sitting in their tent praying. Rubab is looking at her baby son, dried throat, dried tongue, lips are dried, water for 3 days, nothing available. Mother has not been able to feed the baby. It's said that when Hazrat Abbas's shahadat was announced, Imam Hussein realizes that there's nobody else. He calls out, Hal minna Sayyid Sunnah. Is there anybody who will help me? It is said that on the lady's side in the tent, loud crying was heard. It said that the ladies announced that Ali Asghar has thrown himself out of the tent, out of the court. Ali Asghar is waiting for his father to come and collect him. Imam Hussein went and goes and collects Ali Asghar. And his man, Ali Asghar's mother says that this child hasn't drank any water. Maybe the Lanatis would give some water. Imam Hussein takes Ali Asghar to the battlefront. He shows Ali Asghar and shows that Ali Asghar brings out his tongue. Puts it on. It is said that the enemy soldiers start becoming weaker by the heart. But then Masad announces to Humullah, silence the speech of this child. The child hadn't said anything. He was only wiping his tongue on his lips. But Humullah takes out his sword or arrow. He misses the first one. It is said that he misses the second one. On the third one, when he fires the sword arrow, was an arrow which is known as a 3-prong arrow, which is usually used to kill camels. This arrow was hit on Ali Asghar's throat. It is said that the whole throat is punctured from ear to ear. Imam Hussein carries the baby to the dead body of the baby towards the tent and is thinking the mother sent the baby for water. How am I going to take this dead body to the mother? She is hoping that the child's thirst would have been quenched. It is said that Imam Hussein buries the baby's body at the back of the tent on the day of Ashura when all the bodies are being collected. One of the Laim says that I saw Hussein taking up the baby's body to the back. They went to the back of the tent with the spears. They started hitting the ground. One by one, they hit the ground until eventually the spear hit the body of Ali Asghar and it was pulled out of the ground. I pray that inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us practicing mu'mineen, keeps us on the right path, prepares us for the appearance of the 12th Imam. And if we're not alive, that inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trains our next generation through us. For that, I pray that inshallah you all become standard bearers of the whole meaning of taqleed and marjiyat, that inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects our maraji, particularly Wilayat al-Faqih, Ayat al-Uluzma, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, that inshallah we're united under one command. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, salawatuka alayhi wa ala aba'ih, fi hadhihi as-sa'at, بهذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وأيدا حتى تسكنه أرضك دوما وتودعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
मोमिन आप थोड़ा थोड़ा आगे आ जाइए ताकि बाद में आने वाले मोमिन को परेशानी ना हो। थोड़ा थोड़ा आगे, काफी जगह है आगे, आप आगे आ जाए। वो बीच वाले असल में आगे नहीं आते तो पीछे वाले फिर आगे नहीं आ पाते। आप लोग आगे आ जाए तो पीछे वालों को भी आसानी रहेगी। और मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि
और जितना जितना आप ज्यादा आगे तशरीफ ला सकते हैं बराबर में आ जाइए ताकि बाद में आने वालों को मजीद तकलीफ ना हो। मुस्तरिब हाल है फिर रूहे जनाबे ज़हरा, शबे आशूर है आज, शबे आशूर है आज। कल मोहम्मद के भरे घर का सफाया होगा, शबे आशूर है आज, शबे आशूर है आज। रोके फरमाती है ज़ैनब, मैं करूं क्या यारा, नहीं खुलता है सबब, नहीं खुलता है सबब। सुबह से क्यों है परेशान मेरा अम्मा जाया, शबे आशूर है आज, शबे आशूर है आज। सरे बानों से जो गिरती है रिदा रह कर, कह रही है मुज़्तर, कह रही है मुज़्तर। नहीं मालूम मुझे होता है कल क्या होगा, शबे आशूर है आज, शबे आशूर है आज। कललमदार हुसैनी कालम खम होगा, नहर पर वावेला, नहर पर वावेला। जाएंगे काक बसर लाश उठाने मौला, शबे आशूर है आज, शबे आशूर है आज। हल्क पाशाह के जब शिमर रखेगा खंजर, हल्क पर शाह के जब शिमर रखेगा खंजर,
ہائے اس کو سن کر رن میں آ جائیں گی کل بنت جناب زہرا شب عاشور ہے آج شب عاشور ہے آج مضطرب حال ہے پھر روح جناب زہرا شب عاشور ہے آج شب عاشور ہے نعرہ تکبیر، نعرہ رسالت، نعرہ حیدری، حبیب خدا ختم انبیاء محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔ ہو سکے تو روشنیاں کم کریں۔ آپ سے گزارش ہے کہ بار بار آپ کو کہنا پڑتا ہے تھوڑا سا اگر آپ آگے جائیں تاکہ بعد میں مجلس میں کوئی رکاوٹ نہ ہو، تو اگر آپ ایک دفعہ اٹھ کے آگے آ جائیں جتنا ہو سکے، کہ بعد میں آنے والوں کو کافی تکلیف ہوگی، صلوات پڑھ کے آگے آ جائیں جتنا ہو سکے۔ کافی جگہ پر آگے اور